I welcome the new ideas. We need new ideas urgently, but in addition to the new, we'll be seeing the old. We'll be seeing the very old things, rock and water that have been here far longer than us humans.
All these layers of time that we inhabit, we're hopefully we're present in our time and human time, and then all around us are other vestiges and traces of events and movements that have preceded us, some by hundreds, if not thousands of millennia. And we're going to try to discover some of those things. And this map is a century and a half old, and it was designed by an army engineer, Egbert Viel, in the 1800s. This was published in 1865. This map is still very useful for architects and city planners. It's called the Sanitary and Topographic Map of New York. And one of the things that Viel did was he mapped all the waterways that were in existence and the shore of the Hudson River, and overlaid a city grid.
This rocky height developed apartments much later than the area just east of here, because it was hard to get people up here. The elevated lines around on the lowlands. But it happens that when Columbia took over the area and the land, they also took over some of the lawns. So there is a chunk. The old South Lawn happens to be one of the areas of Manhattan that was never built up. And so the soil there accumulates rainfall, and it continues to recharge one of the streams. The water that moves through Manhattan is not just runoff from streets like where we're standing through the gutters into the sewers and storm drains, but there actually are creeks that continue to recharge.
The first place Ben and I would like to take you is one of the sources of the creek.
This particular bit of the excavation digs into some of the looser, what I believe to be the looser rock of the creek. The reason I think so is that there's a puddle that forms in the corner every time we get more than just a sprinkle.
When we're traveling through the subway, that often when you hear water, what you're hearing are the original waterways, traveling through the tunnels.
So we're here at Broadway Presbyterian Church, built in 1911, made of local rock. So we'll be encountering this rock quite a bit. This is the rock that the subways are tunneled through. The main thing you can see about this rock at this point is that it was worked. It's this rock, this ridge of rock, that's created Broadway, and that is at the surface here, dips below the surface, but supports the skyscrapers. You'll get to touch this rock twice again, and so you'll see that the rock is different depending on whether it's been worked or not worked.
We're now walking along the creek that existed. So where did this stone come from that, that church is made of, and walls and subways go through? And this is where it comes from.
This is shaped partially by the glaciers. So there was glaciers on top of this some tens of thousands of years ago, but this has been here for actually hundreds of millions of years. But what happened here is that there was rapid real estate development, and they just plain old didn't get around to blowing this area up. So this is one of the very few pieces that's left over from the original rock.
We've just walked down the creek. So if you look at the map, you can see that we're down 114th Street is the former creek, and if you look at the way the cityscape is still proportioned, you can see that actually it's a slight vale coming down, in which the creek flowed from Columbia into Morningside Park and into the Hudson.
So this is the plain old bedrock.
Well, the fact that it's got an overall smoothness to it, and it's pretty level, could be due to glacial smoothing. And the glacier is moving, so any rocks at the bottom of the glacier and sediments are also moving along with it. And if it moves over a rock such as this, it could scratch it.
Was this rock already here, or it wasn't brought by the glacier?
No, this is part of we say the bedrock. It forms the base of Manhattan.
Now we're seeing a different formation of rock, and this is by human intervention. So that rock has been shaped and and fashioned by us into this wall. And if you look closely at the wall, you can see certain traces of how this wall was constructed. I mean, not just the grooves and the putting together of the various blocks, but another aspect which...
So there's this little half cylinder here. There are a number of these all along the wall. These are just left over from dynamite. This is another thing to feel how smooth the drilling was. This is different from the church. The blocks here are not only larger because you need them structurally for the wall, they're somewhat more irregular. This is more what's called rusticated because they really liked rustic. This is going to be British, all sort of woody and curvy and wild, rather than French, which is all linear and orderly.
So we've been ambling at a fairly relaxed pace, human scale, 1.5 foot at a time. And now what I'd like to do is walk much, much slower. So we have to take it from a human pace and try to get down to the glacial pace. We're getting to the end point of our walk and talk, and we chose this park, Strauss Park, because it relates to ice. It's dedicated to 2 people who passed away on the Titanic. I'd like us to take a few minutes to really plant our feet on the ground, note how certain sounds fill the soundscape. They have a presence. It disappears and dissipates, and how rhythms emerge and vanish.